As I said at the last meeting when we were discussing this new policy, again, I'm very aware there are more consequential issues in this, and I'm looking forward to working on those. But for me, this is important to understand why I'm making certain decisions as a board member. So I looked into it and I continue to have thoughts on it. I'd like to note the wording in the new policy referring to the Code of Ethics. And again, for folks who are not familiar, I'm trying to get to it again, excuse me, learning how to scroll through my agenda is a work in progress. So again, no board member shall serve in a leadership role in a parent organization or parent association or volunteer role within a school building that is executive in nature pursuant to policy 9210 and the Code of Ethics. Myself and my colleagues on the board, we have respectfully disagreed on the interpretation of the Code of Ethics through the School Ethics Commission, who is the body of people who interpret the code for board members. Because the School Ethics Commission is a free and impartial resource for matters like this, I sent a letter in to this group of folks asking for an advisory opinion. And if they take this request for an advisory opinion, we would know by the end of February, or we would hear what their opinion is by the end of February if it is indeed a conflict of interest for a person to serve in these two positions. That said, I would like to make a motion that we postpone the vote until the March 12th meeting.
You're making a motion to table the first vote, motion number 1. Is there a second? Is there further discussion on that?
Yeah, I would like to address a few items. Just to sort of back up again to the beginning, I did this last board meeting as well, and I did this in some private conversations. Just for clarity and for transparency and to address some of the language that was used tonight at our meeting, I read that book too, Thinking Fast and Slow. Right? Same authors.
Different book.
Same authors. Because they discuss it there too. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know that one.
The process started really when we were down at convention. I was down at convention, many of us were. And we attend training sessions where we're updated on a number of things, most of which are ethics. Because there's a great deal to be concerned about as a board member, and so you're constantly learning and refining your skills. And in not one but 2 separate ethics sessions that I sat in on.
This was the end of October.
That's right. They addressed, and this was before the election. Yeah. And they addressed the concerns about being a board member and being active in the school. And where are the lines for yourself as a board member? What are the things to be concerned about? What are the absolute don'ts? For instance, you can't teach in the school, but you're also a board member. Right, that kind of goes without saying. That seems pretty clear, and yet those are things they talk about. So there were a whole host of conversations, and there are a myriad of ethics opinions on things board members can and cannot do in the schools, around the schools, with the schools, as a part of the schools. It becomes tricky, especially as a parent. And one of the things that they addressed was the presence of board members in executive roles and in authority positions in a school in which they serve as a board member. And it rang a bell for me first personally, because some of you may remember that when I was a parent in the school district and my children were in Normandy Park schools, I was the music director of the school play. Not paid, not an employee, but that's how I functioned for years. I did that with the permission of the superintendent. I did that with the permission of the principal. We were very careful to try not to do things that would clearly cross lines. I never disciplined children. I was never alone with children. I was never alone with teachers or the principal. I never auditioned children or chose their parts. Someone else did that, the principal did that, or the director did that, and I just taught them the words to the songs. But under the present rules, understanding what I do understand today based on my time in the school board's ethics classes, I really shouldn't have done that. It was not appropriate, and I didn't know it. So I thought that a rule helping to clarify that would save someone from making a mistake I myself had made. So we had all sort of been in on this. Ann Ryans had been in on a class separate from me. We had discussed it later. Lisa was in a class with me, and we both kind of looked at each other and said, well, that's interesting. Normandy Park sure wouldn't fly now. And the discussion developed. That's where this clarification came from. And the election happened, and we had many discussions, and in an effort, and in a school of thought that we've always been involved in this board: transparency, openness, and frank dialogue. I had long discussions with you, and we've had long discussions on this board about the history of the development of this policy, the intentions of developing this policy, and our motives for developing this policy. The motives are really very simple. It's to protect all of the board members who sit here from crossing a line inadvertently into the running of a school as opposed to the overseeing of the running of the school. That's a very important line. It's sacrosanct. It also protects our staff from feeling like we are in the school, checking out what's going on. It's inappropriate to do that. I see team nodding their head. It's inappropriate to even appear to do that. That's not our job. And it really confuses the very healthy and collegial dynamic that I have spent 15 years building. It also protects other parents from feeling like one parent, as opposed to another, has more say. See Normandy Park. That's the mistake I made. Even though I was very careful, even though I never auditioned a child and said, you get the part and you don't, it might have felt that way to somebody. And that wasn't fair. I didn't think about it that way because I was not thinking clearly. I was thinking too quickly. I think now I'm thinking slowly. The other thing that I think is interesting is Mr. Thomas gave, in his letter to us, offered a concern about the difference between this policy as it relates to HSA presidents and this policy as it relates to the foundation. And here's the fundamental difference. One of the things we should note is that this board has traditionally had a liaison to the foundation, the educational foundation, because the foundation doesn't report to the superintendent. The principals do, but the foundation does not. The foundation intends to raise money to do good things for the school, lockstep with the mission of the overall educational organization that is the Morris School District. Without a liaison from this board on that board, how would they know where we're headed? That's why they need a liaison from this board on that board. And that liaison has always been Ann since, frankly, I think she thought of it. But that's another story. Lastly, I think I will say this, that I just note this for sort of future reference. I did see your letter to the Board of Ethics. And it is always our right as an individual to write to the Board of Ethics. Language that we choose matters. When we say our board was trying to work out an issue, it appears as if you're speaking for the board. Only the president can speak for the board. The word "our" indicates a collective, a group. So that we've given that responsibility collectively to our president. So I can't speak for you as a board member, only Lisa can. And no, there are classes, there's a great weekend, the weekend is fantastic, you're gonna love it, it's really great.
So,
And that's one of the things that let's,
I'm going to see what you're trying to say.
so as a group, so each board member, me, you, Lisa even, we don't have our own voice really. We have no authority at all as individuals. We only have collective authority as a body. Only we can do anything. I can do nothing.
As a board member.
As a
So you're
board member.
saying I was not permitted to send a letter, or what are you?
You
what
are
you
on
saying?
behalf
Sure.
of you, but you
Oh,
have to
sure.
use the word
Okay.
I.
Yeah,
Just grammar.
sure.
Only grammar.
Absolutely.
Semantics, you know.
Duly noted.
I'm actually a lawyer, I don't just play
Sure.
on TV.
Sure.
And so that's only semantics. It's an hour
Sure.
instead of an I. Okay, and
Done.
it makes all the difference.
Sure.
And you're speaking for you, and you can
Yes.
always speak for
Yes,
you.
yes, yes.
You just can't speak for me.
Okay.
Okay?
You got it. Great. Well, look, and I would just like to add, I think the spirit of some of the past advisory opinions where they have specified being in a school-run activity is inappropriate because board members are supposed to be overseeing the district as a whole and the employees, whereas the MEF and the HSA is a separate body. And I believe in policy 9210, it says the board isn't supposed to interfere with the HSA, the inner workings, and the HSA and our bylaws, we say the same thing. So anyway, it goes back to discussing what do we think the code of ethics truly means. And that's why I sent the letter. So, and again, that is the spirit of my motion to postpone, or whatever language that you're supposed to use, postpone, table the vote until March.
Is there any other comment on the motion to table?
Excuse me for me.
Okay, Peter.
The reason why I seconded this, I actually disagree with my cohort here. I am actually in favor of it, but because I'm a real separation of church and state God. But I wasn't going to get into particulars, but Nancy introduced it. This has nothing to do with personality, it has to do with fact. I feel that this is not broad enough. I frankly feel that there's a difference between a board member being on the board of the MEF versus a liaison with the MEF. I think it's a very, very, very slippery slope. I think if you have an outside organization, and it is an outside organization, volunteer, doing great stuff, there's no denying that. But they are making judgments on programs in different schools. And they have the right to approve a grant or not approve a grant. And I think you are setting up a situation where you have a school getting something and another school not getting something, or a teacher getting something and another teacher not, or a student versus another student. And I think to have a board member in that position is not right. Now, I realize that the board member who does that is excluded from the vote when it comes to a vote here to accept it. But that board member, whoever that board member might be, is not excluded from the decision of that organization to give that grant. that to me is even more important than the acceptance or denial of the grant. When you think back upon this board's history, I can't remember, I may be wrong, but I can't remember this board ever voting down a grant. I don't believe that we've ever said to an MES or another donor necessarily, no, we don't want the grant. We don't want to give it to this program. And I'm saying, I think it's a very inappropriate, slippery slope for a board member to be making those decisions on $500,000 of grants a year. And I think it leaves us open to a dangerous, not dangerous, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean, to an uncomfortable situation, as uncomfortable as a board member being a member of the HSA. So I respectfully disagree with, and we've had long discussions about it, but I think that being a purist, I think it's not broad enough, and I think we're really, I agree with the letter I received. I think it's not broad enough.
Discussion right now.
I would, so
The
therefore,
discussion is
I'm
to
sorry,
table it or not.
so therefore,
You're talking about
because-
words that aren't in
I'm
there.
sorry, I would table it.
But do we need to table it to deal with your concerns?
we're just gonna vote whether to table it or not. Leonard, do you have a?
Yeah, just a quick question, and then I do want to comment on the motion as it's written. I can't support the motion to table it, and the reason why I just want to get this out is, and we've discussed this before, I've missed the last two discussions on this by having some individual discussions with members of this body. We had asked the superintendent to get a legal opinion with respect to our, among other things, our ability to be able to craft such a motion. And I think that we're pretty clear that we're not, the motion as it's written now is not in violation of the ethics committee or any law, and that we do have a response. We have a right to practice. So I don't believe that there's any further need to get any more clarification from anyone else with regard to this. And that if we find out at some later point in time that this policy is in conflict of something else, then certainly we can make an adjustment. But I'd like to move that, call a question on the table motion.
And Jen, did you have any comments?
I have comments on the general policy.
Would you like to wait? Okay, are there any more comments on the motion to table? Okay.
Ms. Bangiola?
No.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Gallerstein?
Yes.
Mr. Posey?
No.
Mrs. Grimes? Dr. Van Frank?
No.
Ms. Pollak?
No. Okay, we're back to the motion on the two changes to policy.
Morristown Green.